today, since I'm about to head off to Ecuador, and I've just been kind of, geeking out hard, I thought we'd do something on drawing toucans. My hope, if you're thinking like, "Ooh, that sounds kind of rough," my goal is to turn you from a toucan to a toucan. So toucan do it too, and it's going to be fun. So let's take a look at toucan. So if you have Play-Doh at home, I have made my little toucan body here. It is so just a little oval, and I stuck a little tail on the back of it. And here's my little toucan head. We've got a big beak here. Actually, I put too much curve in that beak. It should be going out straighter, and then just have a little bit of a kink down on the end. Always when we draw things that are kind of like a curved beak, it's really easy to over exaggerate that curve. So now I've got this a little bit straighter. And so generally speaking, the little toucan head is on top of a long, flexible S-shaped neck. So the little toucan can actually, we'll jump over to the thrill cam here, and make it a little bit easier to see. Well, actually, we'll just start here. So here's my little head. So it is on a flexible neck. So it can hold its neck up here, or it can hold its neck down here. If it takes its head and sticks it out here, like when it's actively feeding, it will do that. And on this neck, you'll see toucans kind of just like getting all into the business of some fruit down here. But when they're just sort of hanging out, that's going to make their neck tired because this is heavy. So the head will sort of rest back behind the body here so that the weight of this is going to be carried by the body. So you will see them doing this when they're actively feeding, but generally what your little toucan friend is going to be doing is doing this. I'm going to think of a few little guidelines on the toucan body here. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle of the tummy. And I'm also going to make a couple of rings around the toucan that way, and another lower tummy one down here. So if I make a line all the way around, got large Black Hawk helicopters flying overhead here. So here I have these little rings around the body. So notice when I hold the toucan this way, you see those as straight lines. But if the body is rocked, now you see how that makes a smile, right? So I'm holding it here. This makes these curved lines are making a little smile around the body of the toucan. Let's actually, this would be a really opportune time to switch cams. So what I'm talking about here is, so these lines here, here you see it straight. Here, when I'm holding the body at an angle, you see this as a little smile. So why am I calling it smile? Because smiles are a line that goes up. And so if I have this body here, imagine the axis of it going through there. These are making, see the smile, 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 smile. We're making smiles around the body of the toucan. And when I put some of those sort of marks onto my toucan, it's going to help me visualize this body as this rounded form. On the head, a useful line is to think of coming straight down the beak.
straight through the middle of the head and also under the chin, kind of coming down there.
So as, oh, that's a little bit hard to, oh, there it is. Gotta hold it in an angle so you can see that shadow. As you are looking at a toucan, what are the, I want to sort of think of this body and this head as three-dimensional forms, which is a great reason to model it with a little bit of Play-Doh. So if I have a head that is over here, I'm going to imagine a little line through my head, another line I'm going to draw through its eye. The beak is going to attach on the front of the face here. And I'm going to make a large, from the beak and cross section.
Can you adjust the page just a little bit?
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
So the beak is kind of pointed on top and it's flatter on the bottom. And so I'm going to, from that space, the beak is going to come out pretty flat and then tip down. And I want to think of, here's the belly line of my toucan going up into the throat, going up into this place where my head beak is going to attach, where I'm going to pop that beak onto my little head. So I will be coming back to some of these construction lines in just a little bit. But first, let's look at a few pictures of toucans and think about how we're going to simplify this bad boy. Toucan share screen. Toucan do it. And where is my, aha. Here's my toucan. The toucan show. All of these little toucan-y images that you're going to see all come from my wonderful website, birdpixel.com, Vivek Kanzoti's website. Encourage people to check that out. And what we are, so here is, well, this is actually a toucanette. A toucanette is a small toucan-like bird that is, well, it's just like a toucan, but not quite as big, and they don't eat Fruit Loops. So if I were looking at this and trying to think of this in terms of this form that I just did with my Play-Doh, I might think about this way. Take a look at this. There's a little line here on the back of my bird. That is often a great way, that line along the back of a bird is a really good way to start a drawing. Then I'm putting in a ball for its head. And then I'm just going to look at this angle, this little curve right here. See that? How does the throat attach to the belly? Those are my initial kind of go-to marks on this. From there, my bird is going to be roughly looking in this direction. And here's my ball for the body. And so I'm looking up slightly at this. So I can think of this as being a little cylinder. Like that. The middle of this bird's chest is over here. So I will often put in a little kind of central line, and we're going to follow that up into the throat. This bird's beak is attaching from a little triangle here on the face.
or a big triangle. And from the bottom of that, you're going out fairly flat, or actually this one's looking up, so let's make it kind of go up, but straight line. And the top is going to come over, kind of curve down to that. On this beak, because we're looking at it slightly from below, I want to think of it, like, so here is, I'm going to imagine here's the back corner of the beak here. Here's the bottom of the beak. Here's the bottom of the beak as a little flat plane there with a top part curving over that. So I want to kind of, more important than this sort of suture of the corner of the mouth, which is curving down here, I want to think of my bird beak has this bottom. Here's that flat plane along the bottom. And then we are curving up, the top part curves over that. So that if you were to wrap a line around this, you would come around this corner here and be wrapping up the side. So this then helps me think about that little beak in a more three-dimensional way. Let's take a look at another toucan. And we're going to block this one in as well. I start with just that line that we see across the back of the bird. So the curve of the head comes into the curve of the back. Very often it's easier to look at the negative shape. So not looking at the bird itself, but looking at that sort of form back there. I'm then putting in a ball for my head. And I'm looking at what is the shape of this angle right here as the throat kind of wraps into the chest. If I get that, then it's a lot easier to put in sort of a ball of a body that tucks into there. My undertail coverts are going to be a little wedge at the back here, and the tail is going to attach into that. We're thinking about this beak. I'm going to think of it as coming from a triangle here on the face of the bird. The bottom edge of it is straight. The top is that curve. Notice that the eye sits higher than the corner of the mouth. So the eye sits fairly high in the head here and closer to the front of the bill than you think it probably should be. It's going to be a tendency to put our eyes further back here. So this is pretty, just look at this distance right here in front. That's going to be a very, very useful distance. And then when I'm thinking about this bird three-dimensionally, if this is my ball of the body, I want to think of, so also I'm going to think of I can think of the head here as kind of a cone fitting into that ball. But the lines wrapping around this, see this kind of hook up here? That's what's going to give your bird a real sort of sense of volume. So I'm thinking of wrapping lines this way around this body. And that is going to help me think of this bird in 3 dimensions. oops, I want to clear my annotations, and I'm just going to do a quick little audio. Is it easier to hear me this way? Is it easier to hear me this way?
I think both are okay, but maybe I'm hearing the second one.
You're hearing the second one? Okay, so we'll keep it with this one for now. Let's continue on here. Here's another, remember when we were talking about owls? If you're here for our owl class, with the owls, we kind of added into the kind of ball of the head, ball of an oval of the body idea. We added into that, you know, we had our body, we had a head up here. We were thinking of that kind of cone that attached that head onto the body. That's a useful thing to think about for these toucans as well. So the thinking about the head here as really movable and being on a little cone that I can wrap into this oval of the body is going to be really useful way also of kind of drawing and visualizing these birds. The neck is really remarkably flexible, and can look long or it can look straight. So this is a very kind of confusing part of the toucan. When you're looking at toucans, here's my line along the body, along the back. Here's my head, my ridiculously large beak. The sort of thinking of this zone in here kind of as this other kind of element that's kind of bulge out the neck here. This kind of neck zone, I think, is a useful element to visualize on these birds. As you look at when this neck is extended, this is making this sort of long tube that goes up. When it's contracted, you'll also still see a really kind of big bump here as all of this material kind of tucks into the feathers. Let's take that's what I wanted. So underneath the hood, it kind of looks like our kind of classic pigeon is going to a costume party, right? There's sort of your basic chicken form here, a pigeon or chicken form. You see that S-shaped neck attaching to a relatively small body. If I were to put feathers on this, so, whoops, let's see if we can back up this time. Yeah, we did. If I were to put feathers on this, here around the head, we're going to be kind of puffing up. All right, so you think of puff here. And then this would be a puff of feathers, roughly like that. And that would then be attached to the body mass like that. This little part out here, that's where the undertail coverts are. So let's think of these undertail coverts from the side as being this sort of little wedge shape. And if we're looking at it from an angle, we're thinking of it, you know, here's that little wedge shape. It is
sort of more like this. So tapering away from the body. But this area here, the tail attaches straight out from that. And it can be wagged up. So the tail can come up here, kind of bending from in here. Actually, our little fluffies will often come in here too. The tail can come straight up here. The tail can come down. So when you're looking at your toucan tail, that can be a little wedge sticking out the bottom with the tail hanging down from that. It also can, bending from here, flip up. And the tail can do that. So they will do lots of expressive things with their tail, flipping them up and down and around. But I think this is kind of nice to think of what that neck is going to look like. And if you kind of get in the habit of visualizing the S inside a bird neck, you're going to be way ahead of the game, because that's something you're going to see at bird after bird after bird after bird after bird after bird after bird. We're going to take a closer look at the bill. The upper bill is larger than the lower. The bottom one has a very, very whoops. Oh, that was the surprise. Surprise, they've got a cool tongue. But let's take a look at the bill shape here. You have this kind of wonderful sawtoothed. This is kind of coming in fairly straight and hooking down. This part curving down to it, big on the top. Notice that if you just had this much of the bill, you really wouldn't think it as of curving very much. Most of the curve happens very quickly towards the tip. So it's coming out fairly straight. It's coming out fairly straight, and then towards the end, we're going to curve down. The lower bill is coming out straight along the bottom, and at the very end has a little bit of a dip down. Here's a little toucanette. We see here from the side that, whoops, hey, come on back. When we're looking at the side view of this toucanette, we can think of the bill as coming out straight. We can think of that as then having a curve down at the tip. And it's mostly going to be straight for that lower mandible. Note that the feathers on the chin here come up fairly far out on underneath that bill. So that bill ends up kind of embedded into the head. And the eye is closer to that than people tend to think it's going to be. This bird has its bill in a slightly foreshortened position. So when the bill is foreshortened, if the bird is looking towards you, the bill is not going to be as long as you're used to seeing it. So it's hard on a long-billed bird to draw it with a shorter bill, because the length of that bill is so prominent in your head, you are going to probably get in there and overdo the bill. So on the little aracari here, if we're kind of going, whoops, hey, all right, so here we're seeing this bird's head more from the side. Let's turn it back so that we see it from the 3/4 view here. Notice that sort of proportionally, this bill feels shorter. And that's because it is pointed towards you. So let's just think about drawing that foreshortened bill. You're going to come from a little box on the face of the bird. From that, you're going to come out fairly straight and hook down steeply towards the end. On this bird, the corner of its mouth sort of sits low back here. And so what you want to do is, as you are visualizing this, is imagine lines wrapping around it like this. And that's going to help you keep this bill three-dimensional in your head. Down from the side, I'm seeing feathers on the throat coming up here. I'm seeing the feathers on top tucking in here. And actually, if you look on the very top of this bird's head, you can see that the beak kind of makes a little W on the top there, where it sort of meets in the brow. So that means that this little portion of feathers, these are going to tuck in over the bill. So that if you're looking at it from the side, I have my big axe face coming out here, that these feathers are going to kind of tuck in over the top. I'm going to come down straight, and my chin feathers are then going to come out under that. It's going to help me lock that bill into the shape here. From the top here, you can see that if I draw the center line of the bill here, I have a kind of a triangular platform on the top here. So that I am, let's think about this bill three-dimensionally. That's going to help me be able to carve that bill. I'm going to ask everybody to pause for a moment and draw this very, very foreshortened toucan bill. Let's try that. On your piece of paper, everybody draw the foreshortened toucan bill. And just note that it will be weird to draw the bill that short. And I'm going to give you all about a minute to do this. couple more moments with the bill. It's about to fly away. Let's take a look at the rest of the plumage of the bird. This is a little toucanet. So what can we see? We're used to, for features on it, things to notice. Of course, we have our eye here with a little bit of bare skin right around the eye. Behind the eye, the bird has an ear about there. And covering that is an ear patch of feathers. So if you look here, there's sort of feathers coming back, kind of like that. That's a little pad of stiff feathers that covers over the ear. You see your chin feathers, as we described, coming up. These feathers here in the forehead popping up so that the beak feels like it's embedded into the face of the little toucanet. A few important inflection points to notice. One is right here where the head meets the body. This little line in here, if your drawing just kind of smooths all those together, you'll miss this sort of important kind of change right here. There's a little change in angle. It's a subtle thing, but that's going to be useful for making your bird look like the bird that it is. On its wing, when I draw wings, I usually start just by making a little mark where the start of the leading edge of the wing is, and sort of dropping back from there. The primary feathers on these birds are short, almost entirely hidden by the secondary feathers. The secondary feathers that you see here, those are those green feathers. So we have a pile of feathers here. So this little zone in there, those are my secondary feathers. I also have a zone of medium-sized feathers in here that are covering up the top of that. And then there's a zone of smaller feathers up here on the top. So these are my secondary feathers. In here, this is my greater covert feathers and my lesser and median covert feathers right up here in this area. So when you're drawing the wings on these, there's just going to be a small pad of feathers that are larger, that then get smaller, that then get smaller, and then get even smaller. And you're going to see that same pattern on lots of different birds. You don't have to worry about a lot of other birds. If we're drawing other birds, we would have to kind of think about the primary feathers sticking out underneath this. Mad points, extra points, if anybody can add into the chat what you think that feather is right there. People who have studied wings with us before, that's your kind of, this is a big test here. What is that strange little dark feather? It's hanging out right there. I don't know. We look on the back side here, we can see the wing on the far side. This is all the secondaries and the secondary coverts. This little triangle right here, that's the primary sticking out the bottom there. This little pad right here, that's the primary feathers on this side. The covert feathers I can think of as a little wedge here at the back of the bird. And my tail feathers insert into that. This whole package, though, can flip up and really, really move around very easily. So those are just a few surface features. And now on this different bird, see if you can identify those same features. So also use this bird as an opportunity to take a closer look at the feet. Here we don't see feet, but here we do. What's weird about this foot? What's weird about this foot? Normally when we see a bird from the back view, how many toes do we see curled around the branch towards us? There's one coming down towards us. But here we see two toes clearly pointing towards us, a long one and a short one. What's up with that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Bird feet are set up like this. Here's your standard, whoops, I didn't mean for you to go yet. There we are. No, you, there. So here is my standard bird foot. If I'm looking down on on a pigeon or a sparrow, and here's where its legs come down to the ground, it's going to have one toe that points back that has a claw on it. And then as you go towards the inside, the next toe here has two bones in it and a little claw. In the middle, there's a toe that has three toes and a claw. And on the outside, there's one with four toes. So here's three and a toe, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and a claw. So the longest toe being the one in the middle, 3 joints on it. But this outside one has 4. Take a look at this toe that is sticking down here on the back of the bird. And look at this. Here's section 1. See this little line right there? There's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. There actually are 4 sections here in this toe. That is this outer toe. This is this other toe that is normally pointing back here. So what's happened is on these birds, this back toe, it swings down to oops, giving my drawing tool back. The back toe swings down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a claw. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a claw. So this is also the way that owls are set up, woodpeckers, cuckoos. And so you've got 2 forward, 2 back. And the 2 in the front will typically be held really close together in these birds. So if you look here, you see here is that toe with 3 sections. Here's section 1, here's section 2, here's section 3. That is So 2 toes forward, and you notice that they're just wrapped around right next to each other. Cool style of toe. It's called a zygodactyl foot, a zygodactyl foot. On this bird here, let's see if we can make sense of its wing. I am seeing, we don't have a lot of detail, but I'm seeing a little black part stick out here. That's the tip of my primary feathers. Here is a big pad of long feathers. Those are my secondary feathers. I have a pad here of medium-sized feathers and a zone up here of layers of smaller feathers. So I'm going from small to bigger to biggest. And on the ones that are large enough for me to really see well, the feathers overlap this way. So from the back to the front. When you get into the smaller feathers up here, there's some differences, but they're usually so small and not as clearly defined that you don't really have to worry about it so much. So the wing, the simplified wing here, is going to be, I can draw just sort of a little ball to curve across the top of it. That's going to be where I'm getting my, so I'm going to have my secondaries come down, and maybe there'll be some primaries sticking out underneath it. My secondary coverts above that, and then up in the top, there'll be some smaller feathers up there that are my median and lesser coverts. And that's what I'm seeing on the side of that bird. Let me back up for just a second. Let's just take a look. I'm going to ask everybody to make a speed sketch of this posture. And then we're going to move the bird slightly. So get that back shape. When I'm doing something like this, negative shapes and angles often are extremely helpful. Before I get to the point where I'm drawing really firm, bold lines, it helps to do things like this. So let me show you how kind of to trim this bird out with just a little bit of negative shapes. This shape here, ooh, that's going to be very important. This shape here, look at that. Boom, boom, boom. How does your sketch compare with those negative shapes? If it doesn't, this is a time to just, with your pencil, kind of get in there and over the sketch that you have right now, just punch these lines in a little bit more forcefully. Those angles are going to, what is going to make this bird, this bird. And we're going to compare that with the speed sketch that we're going to do for this next bird. So same thing. But before we do, whoops, hey, come back. Oh, spoiler alert. Before we do, just check out this angle here and this angle here, this angle there. Notice when I put these in as more sort of straight lines, it helps us see those. When I think of this as just sort of a general curve, I don't notice that actually it's really coming down straight here. And right in this point here, there's a big inflection and a lot of this happens. When I erase this, these red lines, you're going to notice that the curves, you'll be kind of, you start kind of looking at those curves as more rounded things. It's going to be easy to lose the kind of the critical inflection points in those lines. Let's take a look at this without the red lines. Notice if you're just kind of oh, it's got a curve in the front. Yeah, there's a curve towards the back. You might miss the point at which this becomes this. Notice the amount that this bird's chest is pooching out in the front. I'm going to back it up for just a moment. Back that bird up. Remember this guy? Oh. So take a look at where the neck comes down in the front on this. There's a little bit of a bump. There's a bigger bump as the head is coming down. As the head is dropping down into the body, that neck is actually that S of the neck. Remember that S of the neck? That's kind of curling up in here. And that's giving us this bump as a little bit bigger, almost kind of looks like the bird has a bit of a goiter. But compare that with this. Ooh. A little bit of moss trying to get in our way there. But same bird, this is a great kind of example of the flexibility of that neck and how the bird's body kind of does this shape-shifting thing. We're making a sketch of this posture, catching those angles. Unfortunately, there's some moss in our way, but we're okay with that. And it's going to be there for us for about a minute more. Love how those two toes are just so close together. What you're seeing there again is the middle toe and the inner toe. Inner toe with 2 big bones in it and a claw, the middle toe with 3 big bones in it. Notice how that one with 3 bones wraps around the branch a little bit more visibly because it has more joints. Oh. All right, so these are toucans, and you can draw them too. They are awesome birds. As we draw them, the more that we remember these, thinking about their bodies as cylinders, curving lines across them, remembering that as we foreshorten the bills, they get smaller. That's really going to help us be able to draw what we see. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the share, and I am going to do just a little drawing demo of, oh, it's 11:03. No, I think I'm going to stop the share. And how time flies when you're drawing toucans. And change back to this view. Here we go. So a little bit of anatomy coupled with thinking about these as three-dimensional structures is going to make a big difference. It's going to make a big difference in your ability to draw them. Otherwise, we'll just have a tendency to do everything in profile, right? But when we're deliberately thinking about how's that beak going to foreshorten, and how are those curves going to change around that bird as it rotates, it's going to allow us to draw the toucan in the different angles that we see it. Otherwise, because it's so novel and just frankly weird, the tendency is going to be just to do, here's the profile of this toucan. Even though you're looking at a 3/4 view, the brain will try to simplify this. I got it like, oh, could you please do that, Mr. Toucan or Mrs. Toucan? I hope that this was fun for you. I hope that in the process of looking at this, you were able to transform you from a toucant to a toucan. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is to go on to seeingbirds.com and do a search for the toucans. So you can just type toucan into the search bar there, and all these pictures of toucans pop up. You can also use Seeing Birds, and you can also use Bird Pixel. So those are my two favorite websites, birdpixel.com and seeingbirds.com. Drop toucan into the chat and you'll get a bunch of toucan pictures. And just to play with those and do it so much, sort of intentionally look for ones where these ideas of sort of rotating the toucan and drawing kind of an angle view of the head, an angle view of the body will kind of come into play. More important than getting all the colors in the right place. Think about it as a structural diagram of a toucan and see what comes out on your page. I'm going to do just take a couple minutes here and do a little demonstration of kind of what I am, what I'm talking about, and I'm going to be using hold on a second. I'm going to use the photograph that you saw a moment ago as my kind of as my little guideline. So I'm going to be looking at a photograph, but to make this sort of a larger thing on your screen, I'm not going to be showing you the photograph, but you can later on go on to, this one came from Bird Pixel. You'll be able to find, I know this is exactly the picture that Jack was looking at in order to do this. So I'm just going to do one little demo, kind of three-dimensionally sculpting a toucan. And then we will close our workshop for the day after a little bit of community discussion. So I am going to go to this view. And here's my piece of paper. Looking over the chat now, I can see, everybody's like, ooh, alula. That's right, that was the alula. So mad points for the alula spotters out there in our audience. That's a little bit geeky in the bird department, and I love you for it. I now am going to give myself a reference photo. So I'm going to start my drawing just with kind of a line down the back of the head of my bird. And that's the way you see me starting most of my drawings. And then I'm putting in a ball for my head, and then thinking about what is the angle of how that neck kind of meets into the body. The body then has its own little oval.
Yeah, can you slide it down just a little bit?
Is that good?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So now I'm going to put in some center lines. So a center line on this little bird, I'm going to drop it right in here. And so my little bird friend is going to be, so I'm thinking of this body three-dimensionally. It's going to have tail. It's going to come down in this direction. I'll often like draw the tail through the bird. This one has a leg, one leg that's coming down in here. The other leg on the other side is in here. And its beak is going to attach in its head in this area here. So I'm drawing that little flat-topped pyramid. So flat on the top, flat on the bottom, but overall kind of pyramid shaped. And then it's a full-on toucan bill, but it's foreshortened. So it is going to be, I have to force myself to, I'm going to make that toucan bill shorter. And it's going to come into there. The eye is going to be closer to the front than I think it should be. And the head feathers are going to wrap around over past where this bill comes in. It's then sitting on a log. My bird has a wing, the leading edge of which is going to come back this direction. And it does this kind of neat little curve down. I'm going to look for some negative shapes and carve in those angles. Negative shape, I'm seeing a straight line across the back. Somewhere in here, there's an inflection point, and this whole business turns down in there. What about in the front? Coming down straight here, and somewhere in here, there's more of an inflection where it's going to turn down that way. All right. So now I've got enough information on here that I can start sort of drawing over this with my pen. We get this little kind of toucan overbite. And then there are teeth. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom corner of the mouth comes down here, and then we're going to tuck back in there. So we're actually going to be seeing, I think, a little bit of the underside of this bird's bill is down here. There's that sort of skin area around its eye, making it look kind of all wild and fierce and cool. And then its feathers on the top of its head. And then here is that rounded chest. So we're coming down. Feathers are going to kind of poof out here above the leg. And this leg here gets its own little poofy of feathers around it. Toes. Bird has a little bar going across its tummy too. Down in this area, there's this red bar. And it's also following the curves of that rounded body. Undertail cobras have a little bit of poofy on them. And the tail, I want to make sure that tail is coming straight down through there. And we're Cocoa Puffs. So what I'm going to encourage people to do is just get on there on Bird Pixel and sculpt yourself some birds. Think of these not as drawings. The challenge for these toucan drawings is to think of them as sculptures. Think of them as sculptures that you're putting on a flat piece of paper. And your tools for carving that are kind of these contour lines going around it. You can also very often use shadows to also help sculpt things. Maybe I'll just do a quick demo with that. For instance, if the light is coming from this direction, then this part of the bird is going to be in shade. And sort of where you kind of go from shade to shadow says something about the angle of the object in the bird. So shadows can help you sculpt, but you want to, in your head, this is not a flat image on paper. In your head, you can feel the dimension. And that is fun with toucans. Let's, I am about to head over to Ecuador to see if there is a site there that would be a really good low-cost place for bringing people from the United States to go and do bird journaling nature journaling, of course, everything there, but it is the bird life in this around the spot that we're going to be looking at is incredibly biodiverse. So I'm going to be looking at the possibilities of then creating, trying to get the best low-cost tours that we can to go and geek out with that, which would just be a whole bunch of fun. Be a whole bunch of fun to be there together. I understand that you can sit on the porch of this place and there's like, 14 to 16 different species of hummingbirds that are coming in. And the names for the hummingbirds just kind of give you a sense of just how lovely this whole biodiversity there is. The white-necked Jacobin, the green-fronted lancebill, the brown violet ear. Oh, what about the purple-crowned fairy? Yeah, a purple-crowned fairy. The black-throated mango. Like, wouldn't it just be so much fun to be getting your journaling on with a gorgeted, the amethyst-throated sun angel. Wow, it's going to be fun. So I hope in the future to be able to bring you all there, and we can sit side by side and journal us some hummingbirds together. I'll let you all know, and I'm going to be sketching myself some toucans and other rascals. Vea's given me the challenge of also definitely bring home some bugs. So I'll be sketching some bugs as well. It'll be a lot of fun. And in the next, so I'll be with you again, not next week, but in 2 weeks. Between then and now, get yourself some sculpting on and get out and make some discoveries in your own neighborhood. So even if you're looking at things that you're familiar with, a challenge is to find the novel in the familiar. So find something new in something that you've looked at a million times. You don't need to go all the way around the world to make a new discovery. A lot of these things are right there in our own backyard. Thank you very much, and and happy journaling, everybody. I'm now going to turn to we're going to turn to our community conversation. And I'm going to look over to the gallery view, and we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today because we had been Zoom bombed. Rather than just turning on the everybody can talk button, we'll be able to, one at a time, allow people to talk. And so the best way to do that is to use the raise hand function, or just wave at us, or like in your, because we'll be looking at the gallery view. If you like do a little dance, then we know that you've really got something cool to share. And we will bias it towards people with better dances. But we're going to start with Kate. Hey there, Kate. I'm going to send you an invitation to
unmute.
To
unmute. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Well, I started a new journal, and the big part of that has been working through your book on drawing birds. So I've been doing a lot of anatomy work, which has been kind of fun.
Oh, that's great. Those are really good studies there.
Yeah, I've just been working through, and I'll go to your book and I'll learn the method, and then I'll look up pictures of different species. So it's been really interesting, especially because we've got ducks migrating through Western Washington right now where I am. Yeah, so it's just been all the different birds from your book.
You're putting in a ton of pencil miles there.
Yeah, well, I just dropped out of environmental studies major to try and do scientific illustration. So I just figure before my classes for that start, I'm going to put in as many pencil miles as possible and work through as many of your lessons as possible. I've got some fun stuff with like El Nino here.
This is hold that El Nino one up again. The the La Nina. So this is just such a cool visualization that you've got here. I really like how you're using like cloud icons. We've got that with the map with the arrow.
Jet stream, yeah. Yeah, well, I tried to find stuff where you can like explain things going between that and then just doing like technical work with birds. Like I have a bird book I stole from my sister, and I'll just flip through that and open it randomly. Or I'll go, Claire, what bird should I draw? And
Isn't that King Eider a stunning bird?
it is. I did not know.
That's
those
ridiculous. I've never seen one of those in real life.
existed. Yeah, that's on my birding bucket list. And then the other thing I've been doing is, since this is 18th century laid paper from Colonial Williamsburg, I took some drawings from my favorite historical figures that kind of got me into scientific illustration and started doing like with your version versus doing replications of those paintings.
What a brilliant project. What a brilliant project.
Well, it's really interesting because looking at an era before photography and whatnot, and from the way that the birds are put together, it suggests that these were drawn without killing birds to study them. So the birds in this collection are kind of wonky looking, but you can tell that like someone put a lot of time into capturing these, and it's really cool.
Oh, that's really fun. So which scientific illustration program are you looking to join?
Right now I'm signed up for classes with Rhode Island School of Design. I'm thinking of potentially doing the CSUMB one.
Yeah.
But I want to do a quarter of just the basic stuff first and kind of see if it's worth putting in the money for that one, because this one's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. When that program was at Santa Cruz, it was a lot cheaper in those days.
Yeah.
But I will say something about this, about that program. It rocked my world and was much better than I thought it was going to be. I had high expectations, and it kicked my my expectations to the curb. They really. Sometimes I've taken a class here and there, and then sort of thought like, I'm like, that was nice, right? But this was like dense, and it
looks really good. I haven't written that one off yet, just because I feel like if I do that, even if I put in a bunch of money doing it, then that will be the one that will send me off with a career.
They do good things, to prepare people for kind of career things.
A good man of war.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm going to get rid of my screen here because I want to make that bigger.
Here, wait.
Remove my spotlight. Yeah.
I've got more. I did your salamanders too from your nature journaling workshop. I've just been trying to get in as many pencil miles as possible. I went through my camera roll and just found all the weird things I took pictures of intending to draw and never did over the years.
Wait, hold that last page up one more time. All right, this is just you're just fearlessly putting in the pencil and brush miles here. This is so exciting. This is the best thing that you can do.
I figure giving myself permission to do stuff badly is the best thing I can do, because it never hurts to just keep doing it. So I try and put in maybe 4 to 6 hours a day.
Yeah. So you're practicing your art and your drawing and your illustration 4 to 6 hours a day.
Yeah, sometimes more.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing it with that kind of intensity?
Probably the last 2 weeks.
Right. In that short period of time, have you noticed a change in your ability to render?
Definitely. I mean, there is an illustration of a Buick's wren that I did that I kind of looked at when that's starting to look a little bit more realistic. And, you see those little plateaus where things are the same. Like yesterday I had a complete art block, and I just figured, work through it. I did do the Man of War, which was good, but then stuff was kind of just meh. I keep going, and then eventually I got this great shrike, which I see a lot of your style starting to be reflected into my stuff, which is kind of cool because I really like the level of realism and the simplicity that you use for a lot of shapes and whatnot that gives it this great natural feel.
There's really cool stuff coming out, and I also love how so folks notice that Kate also sometimes feels blocked, right? That's something that we all feel. And what do you do to kind of, how do you handle that? What do you do for kind of getting through it when you feel a block?
There's two things. I'll either just keep going and keep giving myself projects and then go, okay, you're going to work on this specific detail and make it a technical thing until you get back into the flow. Or I'll find a tutorial like one of yours and start working through it. Like with the strike, I did that. That was just a step-by-step one on your website. And then I kind of took it off and filled in everything with watercolor and made it different from the like white balancing that you're trying to do on there. Yeah, so I just say just keep going if you have time to do it. I mean, it's so easy to get through like clicking through pictures looking for a good reference, and I think the best thing you can do is just, you know, put in the pencil miles. I love that term, and that's why I keep trying to sign up for all these classes, and anything I can do in the meantime to just keep busy and keep moving has been good. So yeah, it's been nice to see kind of the rewards of that.
That's so everybody, so Kate and I and everybody, we all at times feel blocked. We look down at our stuff and we just sort of feel like, oh, this just isn't working. But that is a mind state that will pass. And the secret is you just keep doing it. You do the next thing and you do the next thing and you do the next thing. Don't judge and value yourself by the quality of whatever the thing that is coming off the tip of your pencil right now, because then that puts so much pressure on that moment that it will lock you down. And so instead, just work to kind of create a body of work. And this is just the next thing in it. And it's, if I'm stuck and things aren't working for me right now, well, that's interesting. Let's just kind of keep making some drawings and sort of see, what if I can kind of get myself unstuck. And it's not about focus on the process rather than each individual product. Could we see that Portuguese man of war?
Yeah, that was from a picture that my partner sent to me years ago. She used to live in Florida, and she was walking on the beach right before the hurricane hit. I forget which one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, is that gouache, some of those highlights over the top of it?
Yeah. So for this, I really kind of caked on my watercolors and got them really pigmented, especially with this paper, because it does take watercolor fairly well, but not, it absorbs it very readily. And so you don't get to wash as much. So it's kind of interesting, but it does present an interesting way to layer things up.
That's really fun.
What else
That's really fun. And so gouache, what gouache are you using?
I forget. So I have a little Altoid watercolor palette that I've put together over the years, and most of these watercolors are not the best. I did order a palette from you, so I'm hoping that comes in soon. Yeah, so I just have a little white gouache that I got. It was a cheap one. I forget where I got that, but I don't think that's one of the things you need to be picky about. And I also use the Uniball white.
Yes.
Which, can't live without that. I use that just for a really simple drawing of some little jellyfish that I saw in Monterey a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Well, that's fantastic. Kate, thank you so much for showing us your process and some of your work. Want to encourage everybody just to put, Kate is really putting in some pencil miles here and has already in 2 weeks felt a huge difference in what's going on. And we can do the same. Thank you. That was really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'll have more for you guys next week or the week after, depending on when the next lesson is.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, thank you.
I am now bouncing back to the gallery, and I'm going to move over to the dance move of the week goes to yes, Jack. It's great to see you. We're going to send you an invitation to turn off your let's see, how do I get to there we go.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
So I had a couple things to share.
Oh, yes. You're thinking three-dimensionally, aren't you, Jack? You're seeing through this bird. It's I on that one, and you did a really nice job on the proportions on that challenging one that was foreshortened towards you so much. Well done.
Yeah, this class was really fun. Like it makes it so much easier with that little triangle to start the beak off. And like the little triangle to like start the beak.
Yep.
And that, yeah. And I had a couple other things. Oh yeah, so 2 days ago, on our homeschool community day, we were observing crayfish for science, and I nature journal the one I was observing.
Oh, you've got your measurements in there, really careful observational drawing. That is really neat. So you're measuring the antenna length, the eye length, the small lengths. So you're making multiple measurements in there also.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was a couple nights ago, I was outside, and under a rock I found this little bug, so I took it inside and nature it. It was really cool. And what I thought was really interesting about its antenna, the antenna looked like they were made out of beads. So like all these tiny beads that make up the antenna.
And that little highlight you put in, did you do that highlight with a gel pen?
Yeah.
It just makes it, you can just see the light reflecting off the body of this little insect. That really worked effectively.
And also the day before, I found this little bug. I've seen a lot of them lately, but I called him a battle bug because one of his legs was gone, like he was in a fight.
Oh, yeah. This looks a lot to me like it's interesting that you call this a battle bug, because I think you found a soldier beetle.
Really?
Yes, I think that this is a soldier beetle. I'm noticing that those eyes kind of protruding there, that thorax with a little bit of line on it. Wouldn't it be funny if you came up with the name battle bug and it's a soldier beetle? Let me. I'm going to show you some pictures of soldier beetles, and you tell me if I am in the right family. So very often they have red, browns, and black to gray on their bodies. And I'm going to share a screen here with some soldier beetle images. Are we in the right department here?
I don't see any that look. Yeah, probably, but mine had like it was like a black shell, like black where its wings would be folded underneath.
Yeah.
And then it was this little like orange triangle without the bottom. So like a triangle without its bottom piece. So like just the two slanted edges with a little, so like slant and then a little line at the top.
Something that I noticed on your picture was this. I'll try to find a good photograph that shows this characteristic of the soldier beetle. This one shows it fairly well. There's this little head with the eyes really prominent on the side. So this, ignore the coloration, but the general body shape, that's a cantharid or a soldier beetle. And that's, so that is what could we see that the battle bug again? Oh, that's neat.
And I noticed mine also had red eyes.
Oh, now I'm noticing that the antenna comes up and then there's a sharp bend out to the right.
Mhm.
So now I'm looking closer, that the head shape initially I was thinking soldier beetle, but now I'm getting a closer look at this and I see that the this is actually looking like a true bug, so not a beetle. It's looking like a true bug. So there's a little, the antenna that comes out, and everybody see how then Jack's drawn that antenna, then goes straight out to the right from there. The other one comes up and then makes a bend. That's something you see in a lot of bugs. And then the wings, so there's a little kind of triangle at the back where it wasn't hard wing cover. There, I think we're looking at, let me do a quick search for, now I'm thinking I've gotten a better look at your notes. Check this out. I'm going to do plant bug. Plant bug. Plant bug. Show me the plant bug. Not you, not you, not you, but somebody like this. Not necessarily these colors, but this general shape. So the antenna comes up and then it makes a sharp turn. And then at the back end of these, the wings on the front part are strong and protective. The wings on the back part out here are soft and membranous. I wonder if battle bug could have been a plant bug of some sort. Is that looking closer?
Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that my bug, as it walked around in my little container, as you can see in my picture, one of its legs was folded and resting on top of its body.
Oh, how strange.
So it had one leg gone and then another was like folded on top of its body.
Wow, this bug has been through some tough times. That's cool. And how neat to kind of get that focus on the individual like that. That's really cool.
And I think that, the day before that, I found this really cool bug in hibernation, I think. And when I flipped it over and like put my hands over it so that I was looking through this hole, so inside where the bug was mostly dark. Underneath it, in the back, not where the head is, all the way at the back, underneath it, was these two little spots that were glowing. That was really crazy.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so interesting. Now, and so in the incomplete darkness, this was glowing.
Mm-hmm. And my hypothesis is that where I found it was under a rock, and it was in this little hole about the width of its body, and it was standing upright. So my hypothesis is that if a predator came up to it while it was in hibernation, the two little spots would appear like eyes and it would seem bigger.
That's a really cool hypothesis. And I love the way that you also frame it as a hypothesis. Here's a possible idea. You know, a lot of people are tempted just to say like, oh, these eyes are to look like, these are to look like eyes to scare a predator away. And you phrased it as a hypothesis, which shows really good kind of scientific framing. There is, let me do another screen share here and see if, is this the shape of your critter?
All right, yeah, that one on the top row, about in the middle. That one looks just almost exactly like the one I saw.
Dude, you found a baby firefly.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. So like
you found a baby firefly. That is
really
so cool. Oh man. See, in California, we have this one down here, this pink one. And it is our California one never turns into a flying adult. The male can fly, but the male doesn't have any lights on the California firefly. And the female always stays in her larval form, even when she is mating and laying eggs. She never turns into a winged adult. So our firefly doesn't fly, but it keeps this cool larval form. And I recognize that larval form from your drawing. And they have little tabs at the back that bioluminesce. And so they've got glowing tabs in their abdomen. That is amazing. I'm going to close this out. Let's see your drawing of that larval firefly one more time. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There it is. There it is. Jack, that's really exciting. And so we're just the other day, on Tuesday, we were talking about when you don't know what something is, how to kind of take notes on it that are really, really rich. And that, though you can then be able to identify it later on from the notes that you've taken. You take exactly those kinds of notes. When you're out in the field and you're observing something, you don't know what it is, the sorts of notes that you take allow us to really still, you've got a very useful scientific record of what it was that you were looking at. That's so cool to see.
Thank you. And this was from a book. I didn't actually see it, a bird book, but it looks really cool. And this is a great cormorant.
Oh, nice. And I like the way you've punched in the edges of those feathers. Some people might say that, oh, that's just kind of a graphic style, but they actually have these really bold, dark edges on their feathers, just like you've done. Really nice molding and work there. That's really fun.
And this one, it looks crazy, but this is under the microscope. This is, I nature journaled my tooth when it came out. My tooth, when it finally came out, I ripped it out. I was like, this actually looks kind of cool. So I nature journaled it. That's the actual size. And that's like underneath it, like inside it. And then this is under my microscope.
Oh, that's really slick. What a great idea. What a great idea. So folks, remember, it's not where you look, but it's how you look that makes a difference in this world, in our nature journaling. You can find all sorts of wonders and curiosity, even inside your own mouth. And all you have to do is look with the mind of a scientist and that insatiable curiosity, and the world will open itself up to you. Jack, I'm afraid I'm going to have to I'm going to have to kind of close up our meeting here for now. Well, actually, I'm going to have to bounce. Aveo, would you be interested in doing more kind of group share with people, or
Sure.
Melinda?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. So I'm
gotta
going to
get
have
going.
to leave because I have promised a dear friend of mine that I would meet him for lunch. The Scoutmaster, who was a Scoutmaster of our of Boy Scout troop that I was part of for about 49 years in San Francisco, has recently died, and so we're going to get together and remember him over a burrito, and remember somebody who brought a lot of good into this world. So I want to send a shout out to Joe Ehrman, and I'm gonna have to go. But Jack, I'm so inspired by what I'm seeing in your nature journal. I'm going to turn the reins of this meeting over to Avea and Melinda, and I'm going to have to bounce. But friends, I really look forward to seeing all of you again soon, and be well and take care. Jack, thanks so much for sharing.
Jack, thank you for the amazing teaching, and we wish you all of the happiness and all of the good adventures in Ecuador. And we pay respects to your Scoutmaster. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Take good care.
I will. Bye-bye, my friends.